All right, all right, all right. What is going on, fellow fantasy people? What is going on, YouTube? And as always, what is going on, the Catch fam? So I think we are in business here. Yeah, man, we just need to roll into a couple of mock drafts, man. I have got my 12-man league draft up tonight at 6 p.m. My co-host Steven is also uh, also a member of that same fantasy league. So we will be live streaming that tonight. I think I'm the only one who will be on that live stream, but nonetheless, I'm sure Steven will be popping in and giving us updates through the chat, and I can definitely be shouting out any of Steven's moves as well. So I'm super stoked for this 12-man draft tonight. This is probably my longest term fantasy league I've played in. I've played in this league off and on since elementary school, right when Steven and I first started playing fantasy football. So, nonetheless, man, definitely excited for tonight. A little bit of nerves running, and nonetheless, let's hop into some mock drafts. Let's stop putting it off. We need to get some practice in. So, we want to join a 12-man. I'm closing my eyes and okay, pick six. I was just trying to select a random selection here. So we do actually want to conduct a couple of these through the NFL fantasy site because that is the format that Steve and I will be drafting through tonight. So this is one that I typically stay away from, but nonetheless, we definitely need to be using their rankings to get us prepared for tonight. But I do want to hop into like some Yahoo mock drafts and some ESPN mock drafts as well. But nonetheless, we have not that much time, actually, is the point I'm getting to. We only have about an hour and a half because I do want to take a break in between these mock drafts and my actual draft just to give myself a breather and collect my thoughts, right? But hopefully we can get the NFL website here to load. I just always seem to have issues whenever I try and use their platform, which is a bit concerning overall. I mean, I know we've got a couple windows opened up here, but if this doesn't load, then we'll just hop into a Yahoo 12-man because, yeah, this looks like it's giving us issues. So, nonetheless, let's try and see if we can't get into a 12-man. Let's just join the next available 12-man mock draft here on Yahoo. So we've got the 4th overall spot there. And yeah, we'll just see if this loads or not. I got to send a quick text very quick, and then we'll hop into this Yahoo mock draft, man. All right, guys. So I will definitely be hopping into my actual draft tonight as soon as I can, just so we know what actual selection I'm picking from. It looks like we got the NFL mock draft to actually load, so we'll go ahead and leave this Yahoo draft as it's not necessary. And we will draft through at the NFL platform. Let's see if we can make me just a little bit smaller. Yeah, there we go. Nonetheless, man, I also wanted to mention that little live stream I did the other night. I did that when I got home from work. I had to work Labor Day, and I was on vacation all last week, and I didn't even realize. I kind of looked back and watched some of that. Man, I was just so tired. That was like my first day back from vacation. I worked on Labor Day, and I was very unenthusiastic in that live stream. So I apologize for that, guys. But nonetheless, man, I definitely appreciate if you guys go and smash the like button, get active in that live chat, man. I'm going to need your guys' support throughout this afternoon and tonight. And of course, if you guys are watching this retrospectively, don't be afraid to go ahead and leave some comments and smash that like button. So realistically here, I already forgot what pick I have. I pick 11 in this mock draft. So I want to target 2 running backs in round 1 and round 2. That is what I would traditionally do in a 12-man draft. So I want to start with that strategy tonight. The only other strategy I'm even slightly considering is taking a extreme shot at like a Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes combo. But realistically, I just don't think, when it comes time to actually draft, that is what I'm going to do. I think it's much more likely that I just go out here and I snag 2 running backs of good value. This mock draft, for example, obviously at pick 11, and then pretty early here in the second round as well. I see myself really following that tried and true strategy of the RB heavy approach tonight. So really no reason to not just go ahead and practice with that approach. So with that being said, man, from pick 11, I'd really like to end up with a player like Najee Harris. NFL.com has got Nick Chubb ranked very low. So I definitely am thinking that I would like to go into tonight's draft with a later selection in the first round. We'll see what happens. I just generally don't like to select from the beginning of the first round because I think that you can still end up with some very valuable players as Najee Harris gets selected 6 overall. So yeah, we've seen Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce, Najee Harris, and Austin Eckler all taken in this mock draft. I do find also when I'm doing mock drafts through the NFL platform, it's just more difficult to actually draft in terms of having real people drafting with me. So we see Ezekiel Elliott and Jonathan Taylor here. I got to turn off this mock draft sound. But nonetheless, yeah, I just always end up with more auto drafters than any other site. So let's see if we can't get these settings fixed here. And dude, I don't care that I'm picking at pick 11. Like I'm taking Nick Chubb. This is the best player at the position available in my opinion. So I've got no problem whatsoever, quote unquote, reaching for him there. I don't consider it a reach at all. And now we're going back to the running back position. For the sake of mock drafting, let's just check who's available. We still see Tyreek Hill available. That would be a very, very difficult player for me to personally pass up on, but let's stay tried and true to the strategy that we're following, and let's actually take Antonio Gibson here. I don't mind the selection of Joe Mixon whatsoever there. If we wanted to target a receiver, we would have had 2 extremely good options in Stephon Diggs and Tyreek Hill. Let's see who got selected after Nick Chubb. We just saw the selection of Saquon Barkley, and that is all. So we got a very valuable pick of Antonio Gibson in the second round there. If I start my draft tonight with these 2 players, I'm going to feel very confident moving into the third round. So we've seen Joe Mixon off the board. I would expect a pretty large run at the receiver position. And I do think in a 12-man league, it is okay to go out and draft 3 running backs and then a receiver. I don't think you necessarily have to go out and get 4 running backs in a row. But with that being said, I don't think that either way you're really going to be hurt. I think a 12-man league is a really interesting perspective, and the fact that, and I made a mistake there, I believe I did at least. Yeah, we also saw Devontae Adams chosen in between our selections of Nick Chubb and Antonio Gibson. I only had the running backs highlighted. So nonetheless, we've seen Tyreek Hill, Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, Patty Mahomes, and now Lamar Jackson all off the board. But yeah, I think that realistically, if we want to target a receiver in the third or fourth round, that's probably going to be okay. But I think we're going to have plenty of receivers to choose from all night long. You guys know how deep I believe in the receiver position. And looking at these week 1 matchups, man, there are some guys going in very later rounds. I know obviously the season entails much more than week 1, but some of those week 1 matchups really favor some guys who are being taken very late in mock drafts. And we do see, I mean, a couple good players like Stephon Diggs, a very difficult matchup here in week 1. DK Metcalf, I mean, a relatively difficult matchup as well. So, I mean, there are good receivers going early who face pretty good matchups overall, right? Or at least pretty good number 1 cornerback. So, nonetheless, I still think it's okay if you feel like there's a receiver of really good value, within the mock draft strategy that we're following, that it is okay to go out and take them. But with that being said, with this next coming selection here in the 3rd round, I can tell you my top targets, without a doubt, are David Montgomery and James Robinson. Being able to pair 2 running backs from the 1st and 2nd round with one of these running backs is just absolutely insane, just gnarly talk. It makes no sense. Allen Robinson off of the board. So there is a very strong likelihood that we just miss out on these 2 running backs that we want, as now CeeDee Lamb is off the board. So that would be devastating. I think that's actually what is going to happen, and it is primarily due to the stinking auto drafters. So that is an absolute slap to the face, but it's all good, man. I think that there are a couple running backs here that we still really like. Let's roll with Josh Jacobs for the sake of this mock draft. I wouldn't mind a Gus Edwards there, even with Le'Veon Bell joining that practice squad, right? And now that we are turning around, we are up in 1 more selection. I mean, I also wouldn't mind our guy D10Ds there, but I think that Josh Jacobs is probably the best overall selection there. So we have the selection at receiver of Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper, and Mike Evans. Really my top rated guys there. I like DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson. I'm actually going to roll with Mike Evans here. I think that he just gives us the most likelihood to score week in and week out. I really, really do like Chris Godwin from a PPR perspective, but I do think that we can go out and target that of Antonio Brown in a later round if we truly want a piece of that offense, right? And Chris Godwin popping up on the injury report, another concern that I have overall. So nonetheless, I'm happy with Mike Evans there, right? We could have taken a chance and gone with like a Robert Woods over Josh Jacobs, right? And Amari Cooper over Josh Jacobs, and then turned around and tried to get a running back after our selection of a receiver. I believe Julio Jones is also available there. But I'm happy solidifying the RB position and going and getting Mike Evans and with the following selection. So we have seen quite a few good players off the board. Let's just hone in here, man. Let's see if I can't pull up the draft log. There we go. Yeah, man, Jerry Jeudy coming in with pick 45 overall in round 4. I like the selection. Shout out to Team 4. Great selection, but we saw a lot of good running backs off the board there. I mean, DeAndre Swift, Gus Edwards, Darrell Henderson, right? Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore. So big run at receivers. And we see Miles Sanders, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, and Mark Andrews. We're starting to see some some tight ends and QBs sprinkled in there as well. So Robbie Anderson, a guy who I think holds tremendous value that I'd really like to get on this roster, but it's kind of interesting, right? Because if you reach for Mike Evans, but you have conviction and Antonio Brown, well, I don't know, maybe you're putting too much stock in that offense. Same with the Carolina Panthers. If you quote-unquote reach for DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson, right, and we know the strength of schedule for those Carolina Panthers, well, then you're kind of punching yourself, in the gut or kicking yourself in the butt. I don't know what term I'm trying to use here, but because then if you have conviction in Terrace Marshall Jr., well, you can get him at the end of your draft more than likely. So I don't know. Some of these receivers, I'm just thinking about who's the number 2 receiver on that squad, who's the number 3 receiver on that squad, and would I rather take a chance on a guy in a later round on the same respective team or not? So nonetheless, man, I am going to take Brandon Ayuk here. What a phenomenal week 1 matchup he is going to have against the Detroit Lions. And I am telling you, man, if I am able to start my draft tonight with these three running backs that I have high conviction in and two absolute stud receivers, I am going to be very happy. So this clock is moving quickly and this app is moving very slowly. I would like the selection of Aaron Rodgers here, but nonetheless, I think we go ahead and solidify one more running back. I want to take Devontae Williams in at least one of my actual drafts, right? Because I think that he has tremendous upside at the RB position. I would not have minded taking Kareem Hunt there. I don't really mind the selection of one of these San Francisco 49ers running backs as well, but nonetheless, very happy going out and starting my roster with the three running backs, that of Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson, and Josh Jacobs, and then turning around, in this last round and going out and getting Devontae Williams. I think that gives us tremendous depth at the running back position, and I like these two receivers that we have started this draft with. Now, we will more than likely hold off at the running back position until a guy like Ronald Jones starts to look like he is on the hot seat and we want to add Ronald Jones to this roster. Outside of that, I am pretty confident at the running back position, but you've got to go out and get those guys early, and that is what we have done here. So nonetheless, we want to start observing the tight end position, but we also want to look to the quarterback position as it is thinning out, and I have talked about this a lot here in the off season as well as the preseason. I want a stud QB on my roster, and I'm just struggling with when and where I want to make that exact selection, because you guys know how RB heavy I want to be, and you have to pay such an early and heavy price at the running back position. So it's relatively difficult to snag a QB early without sacrificing a fourth running back, right? And I'm trying to actually go out and get one or two receivers that I believe in, but more than likely that is probably where I'm going to have to make the sacrifice, as I have a ginormous list of receivers I am willing to draft towards the end of the draft, and I think there's more depth at any position than there is, or I don't know what I'm trying to say. There's more depth at the receiver position than any other position in fantasy football, right? And I think that, realistically, I probably should have given up maybe a Mike Evans selection or a Brandon Ayuk selection, just gotten a top tier quarterback, and we'll still be able to potentially target Antonio Brown of that same Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, right? And that's just an example. Obviously, I mean, you could probably still target that of Deebo Samuel in a later round as well. But I actually have, out of that offense, I have much more conviction in Brandon Ayuk than I do Deebo Samuel. And I have pretty similar conviction Antonio Brown than I do of Mike Evans, just in a different sense, right? I think that Antonio Brown is a strict PPR move. So nonetheless, there's no point in just sitting here and retrospectively acting here. So we have seen a big run at the tight end position here in round 7. I mean, Logan Thomas off the board and Robert Tonyan, that really hurts us. Now Ryan Tannehill is off the board and Jalen Hurts. So also a big run at the quarterback position. And there goes Gerald Everett as well. So let's switch back here if we can't. Yeah, this NFL site, I'm not trying to if you're listening to me, NFL Fantasy, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but this site always moves so incredibly slow. Nonetheless, let's get Tom Brady on this roster. Let's pair him with Mike Evans. So each and every time Mike Evans scores a touchdown, we are benefiting from all angles. Let's check out the tight end position at this point in the draft, man. I like both of these guys at the top right, Tyler Higbee and Mike Gesicki. Let's check the running back position. Nothing to stress about there, although Ronald Jones is moving closer to the top. Let's check the receiver position. Some pretty good options there as well, but let's just hold off and let's go solidify a tight end that we are confident in, something I did not do in my 20-man league, and I highly, highly regretted it. And now look at this roster, man. I mean, a lot of good players at different positions we could have selected there, but nonetheless, we went out and just solidified this roster from top to bottom, man. Tom Brady, Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Gesicki, Josh Jacobs, and Devontae Williams. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 more selections, including or not including a kicker and defense. So still some drafting to be done here, and this is where you are going to make or break your fantasy roster, right? So we are really just looking at the best skill available, the best upside available. I would like to see Ronald Jones fall to us here. That is really the only player that I don't want to miss out on getting that 5th running back on this team to just give us a lot of good depth at the position. But there are a lot of solid wide receivers left, and not just kind of sleeper guys, not just guys that we would like on our roster. There are some solid wide receiver ones available. We're getting pretty fortunate with these auto drafters. Like I said, it is really difficult for me to do mock draft through the NFL fantasy platform and not end up with a lot of auto drafters. But like I mentioned, we are drafting our live draft tonight, our 12-man league through the NFL platform. So I really want to practice through it, but I also don't want to practice with mock drafters. But nonetheless, man, I think we're getting fortunate. Getting some skill position players available here and not necessarily seeing a lot of them taken, because we're seeing a huge run at the defensive position at the moment. So nonetheless, I think we end up with a very valuable player here. I mean, Mike Williams, Corey Davis, Marvin Jones, all available. Let's just take Corey Davis. Let's move along. And here in round 10, we will just go ahead and scoop up our guy, and that of Ronald Jones. So nonetheless, man, let me know in the live chat here what player you guys think from a 12-man perspective needs to be targeted 100%. And if you guys are not playing in a 12-man league this year, let me know what league you guys are playing in the live chat down there, and go ahead and smash that like button, as it'll certainly help other viewers out there see this live stream as well. So 3 more spots left. I would like to add actually another tight end to the squad just to get Mike Gesicki some support. And I'd actually like to add another quarterback to give Tom Brady some support as well, as we have a lot of stock in the Buccaneers offense on this roster. But I'd also like to get at least one more receiver. And that's really what I'm looking for in my team tonight, is as many receivers and running backs that you can go out and draft. I think I'll probably end up with 5 running backs, 4 receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 quarterbacks. So just trying to make the most even roster overall from all angles, right? I think that's going to really benefit us moving forward into week 1. But nonetheless, let's go ahead, as we are 6 selections away. We just saw a lot of good talent off the board and a lot more going. I would keep switching between the draft log and the players, but this site is moving so incredibly slow that I'm just not going to. Brandon Cook sitting here really looking like a really good value at the receiver position. He just got selected though, so Marquez Callaway is sitting here, who I think of course is a great value at the receiver position. Man, we are going to come out of this draft with a lot of good receivers potentially on the board. Nonetheless, I do think that Marquez Callaway is the best receiver available, so let's go ahead and add him. And then, like I said, we want to get another tight end or quarterback. Knowing that Tua is my sleeper, we'll go ahead and pick Tyler Higbee, because I really don't see anyone going out and targeting Tua, maybe other than my co-host on this channel, Steven, just because he knows how much I like Tua and how much I want to draft him. So I think that would be a great kind of support level at the QB position for that of Tom Brady. But man, I know I drafted with a lot of auto. This is just an auto draft at this point, which is going to annoy me. So let's look at this roster real quick. I'm going to get a sip of tea here. So we got Tom Brady, Nick Chubb, Antonio Gibson, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Gesicki, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Williams, Corey Davis, Ronald Jones, Marquez Callaway, and Tyler Higbee. If I start my 12-man draft tonight with these players, I would be absolutely ecstatic. We did just see Trevor Lawrence go off the board. So honestly, man, my next kind of sleeper level QB, I mean, you can't really go wrong with, I would pick Kirk Cousins here. I mean, Kirk Cousins is a quarterback who should be considered in fantasy. He is going to be one of the best streaming options week in and week out. In deeper leagues and super flex leagues, he should be someone you should absolutely be targeting. But outside of Kirk Cousins, who I don't really consider a sleeper, I just consider him someone who people forget about. I mean, Matt Ryan's not a bad option. Derek Carr, I really don't like that offense other than Josh Jacobs. I really want to stay away from that offense, but he has put up respectable numbers in past years. But out of these guys, if Kirk Cousins was not here, I would choose Danger Baker. I would take the man himself, woke up feeling dangerous, Baker Mayfield, right? But Kirk Cousins is sitting here, so I'll take him. But yeah, man, I'm just not ready to sleep on that Browns offense, right? I mean, I know there's been hype around them in the past couple years, and we know that Baker, I mean, some people argue that he's just subpar, but man, I think Baker's got an opportunity to really break out this year. I almost said bake out this year, but nonetheless, man. Looking at the, since we're still here in this auto draft, looking at the defenses available, I would definitely roll with the Pats here, and then we would turn around and get a kicker. So we added Kirk Cousins to this roster. I think a tremendous support at the position for Tom Brady. Two veterans leading us at the quarterback position, but nonetheless, I like the way that this roster turned out, and even though we drafted with a lot of auto drafters, it's good energy to start our night leading in to that 12-man live draft coming up at 6 p.m. So RGT Prodigy had an 8-team standard draft, and I was 8th pick. And first 3 picks, I took Saquon, Aaron Jones, then somehow Najee Harris fell to me at 24. 3 running backs with 3 picks. I don't usually do that, but I couldn't pass up. You made the exact right move. I think you had incredible first 3 rounds, man. You should be ecstatic. Don't know how Najee Harris fell to you that far. Maybe some, bad juju around, the rookie position, right? But nonetheless, man, you got a tremendous value there in the 3rd round. I mean, you could argue also, that Saquon fell to you. I mean, I guess in an 8-man league that makes sense, but nonetheless, I mean, did you pick Saquon or Aaron Jones first? Because that was really the point I was trying to make. If you got Aaron Jones in the 2nd round, then he I would argue he fell to you as well. But nonetheless, man, awesome job. Super pumped to hear that. Even if you don't go RB heavy on a typical basis, I think nonetheless that you won't regret that, because that's going to be an explosive team week in and week out. And don't worry if you're light at the receiver position, there's going to be plenty of receivers who pop up throughout the waiver wire throughout the entire season. So awesome job, man. Glad to hear that. So let's see if we can't hop into a 12-man league on ESPN. We might have to kind of, let's see if we can't get into one of these ones starting pretty soon. These mock drafts on ESPN, they fill up very quickly. Yeah, we just missed this one, I think. I thought we got it for a second. It's like, it's really difficult getting in these, but nonetheless, man, let's just see if we can find one with these same settings. This one does not start till 10 minutes, which is no fun. Let's see if we can't get into the Yahoo mock draft site here, because those typically don't take as long to hop into. RGT Prodigy, I picked Saquon 8th, then turn around and picked Aaron 9th. In the 2nd round. Yeah, man, that's incredible. I think I guess that's not too much of a drop for Aaron Jones, but nonetheless, man, a fantastic start to your fantasy roster. Let us know how the rest of that roster looks. But nonetheless, man, if you started your night with those three guys, I would be jumping up and down all over the place. A fantastic job once again, my guy. Rendon Die. I hope I'm saying that right, man. I'm very bad with pronunciations, if you guys haven't already noticed. Jerry Jeudy, or I'm assuming you mean Brandon Cooks this week. I'm still hyped. I killed my Superflex League. Yeah, man, you showed us your roster, and I think it was amazing. I think you did a great job. Nonetheless, man, I mean, Brandon Cooks definitely, an overall favorable matchup this week against Jacksonville. But I would argue that Jerry Jeudy has a pretty favorable matchup as well against the New York Giants, right? Who are actually pretty good in the secondary, don't get me wrong. But I'm hoping that Courtland Sutton comes out and plays healthy and really is able to take the pressure off that of Jerry Jeudy. And nonetheless, man, I have personal conviction in Jerry Jeudy. It's going to be very difficult for me to not start Jerry Jeudy week in and week out in my fantasy, or in any fantasy leagues that he is on my roster. But I don't think you can go wrong with Brandon Cooks either, man. So really, I would just flip a coin. I know that's awful advice, but realistically, I mean, if we're looking at it, Brandon Cooks has the better matchup overall. But then you do want to think about a couple other things. I mean, are you confident in Tyrod Taylor being able to consistently get the ball to that of Brandon Cooks? Do you think that Texans offense will be able to move the ball down the field on a consistent basis throughout the night? If you're not so sure, but you feel more confident in Teddy Bridgewater and a lot of the other pieces of that Broncos offense, and that offensive unit being able to move the ball down the field, well, maybe you should take a chance on a better defense, against the Giants, right? So, hey man, as much research and analytics that I look at, for this channel, as much practice as I do, at the end of the day, your guess is still as good as mine. That's just me being completely honest, right? Fantasy football will always be something that we can look at from an analytical approach, that we can look at statistics and research, but who the hell knows what's going to happen Sunday? That is part of why fantasy football is so great, right? It is the great unknown. But with that being said, man, I would trust your gut instinct, and whichever one of those two receivers you believe will have a better game, put them out there. And as long as you make the decision based on your own conviction, then you're not making a bad decision. Will one of those decisions benefit your fantasy team more than the other? Yes. But nonetheless, man, try not to go on a tangent here. I think you'll end up making the right decision. So, RGT Prodigy says for receivers, I landed with CeeDee Lamb and A.J. Brown as starters, with Golladay and Thielen and DJ Moore off the bench. So, a lot of good players once again, my guy. I think you have a great roster. I know you're not asking who to start, man, but I would definitely hold off with Golladay at this given moment. A pretty tough matchup against the Broncos this week, right? But all those other receivers are looking like they're going to have a very good week. I mean, the thing with CeeDee Lamb and that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense is, even if they're facing relatively good defense overall, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right, who are stronger up front but still have a good secondary overall. The thing with the way that Dallas Cowboys offense is looking is, you've got Amari Cooper, and you've got Ezekiel Elliott, you've got CeeDee Lamb, you've got Michael Gallup, you've got some tight ends who are going to be rotated in. So they're going to be able to spread that ball all over the place, which benefits them against good defenses. So I think CeeDee Lamb can still come out and have a very good game here in week one, which is tomorrow night, man, is absolutely crazy, right? A.J. Brown, a very favorable matchup against the Arizona Cardinals, of course, and I do think that we are going to see quite a shootout potentially between those two teams. And Adam Thielen, man, a really good matchup against the Bengals, and then DJ Moore, easiest strength of schedule overall from the receiver position for those Carolina Panthers, and they face the New York Jets. So I would look for you, RGT Prodigy, my guy, to be putting up a lot of points here in week 1 between those running backs and wide receiver. So great job, and looking forward to seeing how week 1 plays out for you. Rendon Dye, you are very welcome. Anytime you have any questions, any thoughts, any concerns around your fantasy team or fantasy season, hit us up, man. We are happy to help. Hit me up with 20 questions in a row. I don't care. We will get to them eventually. If you guys are new here, or if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button so we can get this live stream to other viewers out there. And if you guys are new here, go ahead and subscribe, man. We are on the road to 100 subscribers here at the Catch. It's Crypt. What is up, my guy? Cooper Kupp or Brandon Ayuk this week, man. Both have good matchups, man. They really do. I like Cooper Kupp a lot this week. I think he is going to have, he's going to benefit a lot from really that Bears defense being shadowed on that of Robert Woods. But overall, man, I think that Cooper Kupp's going to have a great week regardless. But if I had to start one of those two guys, man, hands down, I am taking Brandon Ayuk at the Detroit Lions, because the Lions are garbage. They are awful. They are very bad. I can't even name off the top of my head a single player in that secondary, which is probably not a good thing. But nonetheless, man, I would roll with Ayuk if I had to pick one of those guys. I think both of them have very good weeks this week. So going back to this mock draft, right, we saw a lot of good talent here, and somehow Nick Chubb fell to us. We have the 12th overall pick, which means we are now picking with the first selection in the second round at pick 13. So really sitting here, man, I mean, as much as I like some of these receivers and other running backs, realistically, I would snag up my guy Najee Harris here all day. Staying in that same division, Nick Chubb and Najee Harris, two running backs who we know are going to get fed the ball over and over again. Rio Goated, what is up, my guy? Hope you are doing well, man. Good to see you in the live chat. Like I said, man, if you guys are new here, hit that sub button. If you guys haven't already, hit that like button. Let's get this stream in the eyes of some new viewers leading up to my live draft tonight. We are doing some mock drafts in preparation for that live draft tonight, trying to get me to get rid of some of these nerves going into tonight, man. I'm super stoked. I mean, my co-host Steven will also be in that league that I'm drafting in tonight. So hope you guys are able to tune in for some time tonight and help me with some of those selections and give me some feedback. And of course, let's get into some fantasy Q&A all night, man. I am so stoked for this season. You know, I mean, last season was a fantastic football season, but obviously with the way everything was, there's a little bit of just a different feeling going into the season, right? And this year, it just feels like we're back to football, man. And don't get me wrong, last year was awesome, and I think we had a fantastic Super Bowl. We had some great playoff games, but this year, it just feels like it is going to be such a fun season. We've got some tides turning with some veterans, right? We've got a lot of youth coming into the league, a lot of rookie quarterbacks to root for, man. I could just not be more stoked for Thursday night football tomorrow, man. Let me know in the live chat who you guys have tomorrow. Do you have the Cowboys or the Buccaneers? Because I am going back and forth, but I think at the end of the day, Buccaneers, I think, is who I'm picking for tomorrow. Let's see. Oh, Rendon Dye. Last question. Got a trade offer. He wants Michael Carter and Tyler Higbee for Devontae Williams. I don't know if I spelled that right. I mean, honestly, man, remind me of what other tight end you have, because I think I might be worth it. But I also have pretty high conviction in Devontae Williams, really based off of the Broncos' strength of schedule overall. But at the running back position, they have a very easy strength of schedule. And I really do see Devontae Williams becoming the lead back in that offense. But I don't know if that's going to take 3 weeks or if it's going to take 10 weeks. I don't know how long they'll be kind of, carrying a committee approach. But at the moment, I feel much more confident in Devontae Williams as a rookie running back than I do in that of Michael Carter. So, yeah, you have Kittle. That's right. Man, I would take a chance. I think it's a good trade, especially if there are some other tight ends out there on the waiver wire who you have conviction in or who you think you can stream week in and week out. Because realistically, as long as George Kittle is healthy, obviously that is your tight end one. So I personally like Devontae Williams a lot. I don't want you to make a trade based on my personal conviction. I think that Tyler Higbee is going to have a great year at the tight end position. So I'd be interested to see what tight ends are available on the waiver wire because you are giving up two players for just one player. So the advantage there is that you could turn around and go straight to the waiver wire and add another tight end, right? So I'd be interested as you are now telling me Austin Hooper is available. He's got a good matchup here in week one. I mean, I think it's definitely worth a thought. I would give it, always give a trade, even if you feel good about it, just give it a day just to let it process and think about it, man. Never jump the gun right away because know that within that trade circumstance, you still have power, right? That other player is trying to trade with you, and you do hold some of the power within the trade. So don't fold right away. Give it some thought and think about those tight ends on the waiver wire and how much conviction you have in them over Tyler Higbee. But if you're asking me, in my personal opinion, I think that trade is worth it, knowing how good the rest of your roster looks and knowing that you have George Kittle at the tight end position. So let's see. Rio Goated. I'm in a bad situation. My wide receiver one is Allen Robinson. My wide receiver two is Chenault Jr. Three running backs, Aaron Jones, Zeke, and James Robinson. Do you think I should trade Chenault Jr. for a better wide receiver two? Listen, man, you have three absolute stud running backs, and that is the core of your team, right? That is who's going to garner you the most points week in and week out. And that is okay, okay? I would not stress about the receiver position at this point in the season. I think you have two very good receivers overall, actually. Give me 1 second. Let's go ahead and let's add James Robinson to this roster. As we know, if he was there in real life, we would not be passing him up whatsoever. Now, there are a lot of options that we can roll with here. For the sake of this mock draft, though, let's take Josh Allen at the quarterback position, and let's start with 3 RBs and a QB, and then let's hop back in to Rio Goated's question here. Do you think I should trade James Robinson for a wide receiver too? Truthfully, I don't. I truly don't, man. I think that Allen Robinson is a much better receiver. I know his name is not as flashy as other receivers' names, but I think he's a much better receiver than a lot of people realize. And I think Chenault Jr., I mean, we do need to see how that Jacksonville Jaguars offense rolls out and everything. But nonetheless, man, I do think that he has amazing chemistry already with Trevor Lawrence, and he's got an incredible week one matchup against the Houston Texans. I would almost say he is one of the top receivers who I am betting on a sure lock to score at least one touchdown this weekend. So if I were you, I would not trade any of those guys. And keep in mind, James Robinson also has an incredible matchup against the Houston Texans. If you're asking me, in my humble opinion, I would start Allen Robinson and Chenault Jr., as well as Aaron Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, and James Robinson, and I would have a lot of confidence in those guys if I were you. So I would not be stressing out at all. My guy, Rio Goated, I think you will be just fine, and I would hold off on a trade for now. Rendon Die, I'm waiting after week one because I'm first on waiver wire, so I don't want somebody to get injured like Zeke and then have to drop Carter to get Pollard, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's fine. Keep James Robinson. Running back depth is scary, Rio. Yeah, I agree with that, man. I think throughout the season we will see, obviously some running backs emerge, but it is primarily going to be due to injury, right? But I think that you're absolutely right. And that's just pointing out how thin the position is, right? So I would agree with Rendon there. I would stick with the core roster that you have. And don't sleep on Chenault Jr., man. I think he is going to have a fantastic season. And I mean, eventually I can get what you're saying, where you'd rather see him as a flex player and kind of a loaded wide receiver room, and you'd rather have a more reliable wide receiver too. But I'm telling you, man, throughout the season, year after year on the waiver wire, we see more and more wide receivers become available. Rendon Die, if anything, let his value go up and up and trade mid-season and get a wide receiver one instead of a wide receiver two. Yeah, that's an excellent point as well. And like I said, it's going to be really fun as well as really interesting to watch that Jacksonville Jaguars offense kind of develop. Who are Trevor Lawrence's favorite targets? Who are his stretch the field type of guys? Who are his possessive type of guys who are getting a lot of PPR value? And who are his red zone targets? Right. And I think at the moment for myself, I think Chenault Jr. is the best red zone candidate. I think Marvin Jones is the best PPR candidate. And I think DJ Chark is the best option to get a little bit of everything. And I think it's certainly going to be a lot of fun to watch that offense. And what a great matchup Trevor Lawrence has here in week one. I mean, just absolutely insane getting to start your rookie season against that abysmal Houston Texans defense, man. So, nonetheless, we have 4 more selections until we pick here in this mock draft. My absolute top targets here, Brandon Ayuk and Jerry Jeudy. I would be ecstatic if I came out of a draft with a value quarterback like Josh Allen and 3 running backs that I have full confidence in Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, and James Robinson. I did not think Brandon Ayuk was going to fall to us, but of course he's our top target there, especially with that week 1 matchup against the Detroit Lions, right? So speaking of the Detroit Lions, the other option here is to go 1 receiver, 1 tight end, or 1 receiver, 1 running back. So with the tight end option, we'd be targeting that of TJ Hawkinson. With the running back option, we'd either be targeting that of Mike Davis or Devontae Williams, who we just talked about in this live chat, right? But the other option is just to go out and get 2 solid receivers like a Robbie Anderson and a Jerry Jeudy. But I am telling you guys, and Chase Claypool's sitting here, but I am telling you guys that Terrace Marshall Jr. is somebody who I really, really, honestly, truly regret not drafting in my 20-man league and not making him more of a prime target. And he's someone that I want to come out of my draft with tonight. I have got a great feeling overall about Terrace Marshall Jr. So let's pick up Jerry Jeudy, and then let's not sleep on our guy TJ Hawkinson, who we had such tremendous conviction in when we started this channel. I mean, I like a lot of other guys sitting here. I mean, Logan Thomas is available, right? We could have added a running back like Devonta Williams. I mean, we could have done all kinds of things, but let's take someone who's rated as a top talent for a reason, and let's add that of TJ Hawkinson here. Now, that makes us feel pretty RB light from what we're used to, but I think we can turn around and potentially get at least a Ronald Jones in this draft, come out with 4 running backs, and still feel pretty good head to toe, and maybe even target someone like Chase Edmonds if he's still available in round 7, although we do have 20 more selections until we pick. Rio Goated. They just changed TJ Hawkinson's status to healthy now, so now I got that dangerous tight end too. Yeah, man. And it is interesting with a lot of tight ends. You see, and funny because I didn't see that comment before I selected TJ Hawkinson in this mock draft, but tight end is one of those positions where you see a lot of players with question marks throughout the season. It's just it's kind of like the running back position, right? And even the receiver position to some degree, where you do see a lot of players pop up on the injury report and with a Q next to their name, right? It's just a position where you get beat down a lot. So don't always panic, but tied to specific injuries like TJ Hawkinson dealing with that shoulder injury, of course, we want to monitor that and make sure of who we're putting out on the field, because some injuries are obviously more serious than others. But thank you so much for throwing out that information to us, Rio Goated. Definitely appreciate that update. RGT Prodigy, Dak or Stafford for week 1? It's a great question, man. If we're looking at the defenses that each team is facing, I would say Stafford has the better, the better opponent overall. Uh, Definitely a better matchup, right? But I would imagine you went out and paid a pretty good price for Dak Prescott, right? So I don't know, man. It's hard to say because that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is very good, and you know, we do know that that Cowboys offensive line maybe has some COVID issues going on right now. We're going to see at least one starter out tomorrow. And just remember what that front seven of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That is my main concern going into tomorrow night for either team, is that that front seven might have a game plan to do what we saw the Buccaneers do to Patrick Mahomes, excuse me. We might see them do something very similar to Dak Prescott tomorrow night. So if you're asking me, uh, I would start Matthew Stafford, but I also can see Dak Prescott coming out and having a very good game, but he might get off to a bit of a slower start and really be playing. I don't want to say playing from behind, but tomorrow is going to be a very, very competitive game. And the advantage with the Rams is that their defense is so loaded, and they're going to be playing against presumably Andy Dalton. I can see the Rams defense making some plays early, and Matthew Stafford and that Rams offense getting up on the scoreboard early, and maybe not having to play behind as much. So you might see Matthew Stafford come out and throw for 3 touchdowns in the first 3 drives, or maybe throw for just 1 or 2, and the rushing game get involved. So there's 2 ways to look at it, right? Matthew Stafford has a better matchup, and his defense is going to play better, right? And then that might actually hurt Matthew Stafford's fantasy value as well, because he's not going to have to play from behind, where I think Tampa Bay's defense is going to perform better, between the 2 matchups, of course. But that might mean that Dak Prescott has to play from behind and put his team in a winning position throughout the whole game. So that could obviously, of course, lead to more points overall. So that was probably my worst fantasy answer of all time, because I just went in every circle possible. You could honestly flip a coin with that one as well, man. I would go with your gut feeling, whomever you have the most conviction in, and don't just look at Dak Prescott or Matthew Stafford. Look at the offense as a whole. Now, those are 2 very good offenses as well, but if we're going off of matchups, Matthew Stafford has the better matchup. But don't forget, man, I always encourage following your gut and following the player that you have the most conviction in overall. So, nonetheless, here at pick 84, and thank you very much for the question, RGT Prodigy. Sorry if I went in 1,000 circles there, right? But nonetheless, man, looking at this roster, we don't want to pass up on that of Ronald Jones the second, but we do need another receiver on this squad. And another option would be just to go out and get another stud tight end like a Robert Tonyan here, man. But Antonio Brown is sitting here. Corey Davis and Brandon Cooks are sitting here. Devonta Smith is sitting here. But let's pick up Antonio Brown, someone who I've talked about starting in week 1 in a very good matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. And then really, I mean, when we're looking at this squad, to finish out this mock draft, we just need receivers galore and potentially another tight end and or quarterback, as really there's not going to be any running backs of value left for us. And yeah, I mean, there's no one that I like in this tier other than Naheem Hines, who we could still potentially get, and I think would be a great value. But let's keep an eye on a couple tight ends, just anyone of value, right? Noah Fant, Dallas Goedert, Mike Gesicki, Jonnu Smith, and then I want to queue up Gronk down there as well, and we'll stick with those guys. We could potentially get a Gronk in a later round, right? And nonetheless, man, we need to draft 4 receivers in a row, at least 3 receivers, right? So Chenault Jr., DJ Chark, Mike Williams, Marquez Callaway, Marvin Jones, Jacoby Myers. I mean, you guys know how I feel about this tier of receivers, including guys like Devonta Smith, right? And even Michael Pittman and Will Fuller, especially Michael Pittman, with Carson Wentz being announced to start week 1. I mean, at this point, he is going to start week 1. That is the assumption. So that gives Michael Pittman a big boost in terms of fantasy. So, Rio Goated, how do you feel about Lamar Jackson this year? I mean, I feel great about Lamar Jackson. If I'm being completely honest, I would have no hesitation whatsoever around drafting Lamar Jackson. But, I mean, when you look at that team as a whole, right? I mean, obviously, there's some concern when we're looking at the skill position players on the team, but the way that offense has been ran, we really don't need a lot of skill position players in place. And Lamar Jackson doesn't really need to throw the football to be successful, of course. So I'm not concerned about him. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. I would put him as a lock to finish as a top 5 quarterback. I like some other guys a little bit more than him. I mean, go check out mine and Steven's QB rankings on the year, but I would be more confident with a Kyler Murray. I think he's just having that year or so more of youth and not being as exposed to the league, right, in terms of how he plays. I think that gives him a little bit more of an advantage, and I think he has some better skill position players around him. But nonetheless, man, Lamar Jackson's going to have a great year. I've got nothing bad to say about him whatsoever. I think the main beneficiary of that year is definitely going to be Mark Andrews. I do think Gus Edwards is going to finish with a good stat line, but excuse me, overall, I am a little worried about the receivers on that team. I mean, just imagine if we could get one of those receivers to break out. I mean, I was really high on Rashad Bateman moving into the season before he got injured, and I would really like to see him come back and fully healthy and just light up the league as a wide receiver 1 for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, of course, we've got other players on that team as well who are looking to break out year after year. I mean, I think you guys know who I'm alluding to, right? And our guy Marquis Brown, right? And I mean, if he put up 1,000 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns this year, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think, I mean, this is a guy who I've had at some point on my roster in one league, at least one league in the last 2 years, and he just consistently disappoints me. So I do not want to draft him. But I think we know his floor, but I don't know if we know his ceiling. And I think that he could still come out and have a really good year, like where he's projected here on Yahoo. But I just don't know if I'm willing to take a chance. I really don't know. But outside of that, man, Lamar Jackson's going to have a great year. I wouldn't be worried about him whatsoever. RGT Prodigy. So out of these 4, Saquon, Najee, Aaron Jones, and David Montgomery, who should I bench? Man, you also got David Montgomery. That is outstanding. That is just absolutely wild. Saquon is a question for me week 1, even if he plays, just because Denver D and coming off injury. Yeah, absolutely 1,000% agree with you. I think it's pretty much confirmed at this point that Saquon Barkley is going to be on a snap count in week 1. For a long time, I mean, he wasn't even, assumed to be playing in week 1. And then more recently, it was changed that he would be playing just on a snap count. So if you're asking me, I would definitely bench Saquon. I mean, a good defense, right? And but outside of that, I also think that he's on that snap count. And then, of course, the injury is still a concern as we take Chenault Jr. here in this draft, and then we could roll with Brandon Cooks. We could roll with Devonta Smith. We could roll with Will Fuller or Mike Williams or Marquez Callaway or Jacoby Myers. I mean, I like all of these guys, but kind of the problem is I like all of them in very similar fashion. So let's stick in the same week one matchup that Chenault Jr. is in, and let's just take Brandon Cooks here. And then we'll look to snag one or two more receivers in these later rounds, and then a tight end as well, and then potentially another receiver or a quarterback. We're really just adding depth at our thinnest positions. Although we only have 4 running backs on this squad, I am very, very confident in those running backs as a whole. And then don't forget, our sleeper that we're trying to snag is that of Terrace Marshall Jr. And I also still really like Russell Gage. And man, let's go ahead and try and talk about this in the live chat, man. When we're looking at the Las Vegas Raiders, right, I am really scared of this offense. I still have conviction in Josh Jacobs. I don't have any problem drafting that of Josh Jacobs whatsoever. But I'm really scared of them from a passing standpoint. But with all of that said, man, and that sounds funny because when you really look at what they did in the offseason, right, their offensive line got a lot worse. So if anything, I should be more concerned about their running game, but for whatever reason, I'm more concerned about their receiving game. But with that being said, their wide receiver room did not get any better, in my humble opinion, in the offseason, right? So with that all being said, what do you guys think about Henry Ruggs, right? Because this is still your wide receiver one on the Raiders, right? And I've talked a lot about this in the offseason about no matter what you think about an offense or what you think about an organization or a team as a whole, if they have a wide receiver one, that wide receiver one is still of good fantasy value to some degree, right? So I don't know, man. I think the more I've thought about it, I feel like I should have targeted Henry Ruggs and my 20-man league. And I also think that he is a pretty good sleeper candidate. Just being where you can draft him, you can get him at a pretty exceptional value. And at this point, it looks like John Gruden is pretty confident in moving forward with Henry Ruggs as the starter in this offense. And I mean, I was pretty high on John Brown up until last week when he got cut, being a breakout sleeper candidate within that offense, right? I really like John Brown. I really hope that he gets signed to another team. If he doesn't, then he's just a great free agent in Madden, which is cool too. But nonetheless, man, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about Henry Ruggs. And outside of Josh Jacobs, who I know not everyone is high on, but I am, outside of Josh Jacobs, who are you guys thinking about on that Raiders offense? And of course, outside of Darren Waller. I mean, I barely even mentioned him when talking about the Raiders offense because he is the Raiders offense. He is so good, he's not even worth mentioning. We all just assume that he's going to be fantastic. All right, so 3 more selections in this draft as we see DJ Chark off of the board. We saw a lot of kickers, a lot of defenses, so maybe we got pretty lucky here. But nonetheless, I think we can still end up with a pretty good, last 2 or 3 selections here. If I'm looking at the available players, I would consider taking Nyheim Hines here just as a depth move. Outside of that, we still want 1 receiver. We could go with 2 receivers here. We could go with a receiver and a quarterback, for example. That might not hurt us as well. Kirk Cousins is sitting here, man. The more and more I look at Kirk Cousins, look what he did last year. Over 4,200 passing yards and 35 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. Only 13 interceptions. He's just so slept on. It's crazy. It truly is. I love Kirk Cousins as a player and as a person, but I also just don't get why year after year he's so incredibly slept on. So I think that would be a good option here as Nyheim Hines is now off the board. So maybe if we go with a Kirk Cousins here as, just to add some depth behind that of Josh Allen, and then another receiver like a Marquez Callaway, Will Fuller, or Jacoby Myers, and then turn around with our final pick and try and see if we can't pick up Terrace Marshall Jr. And I'll talk about another sleeper who really isn't picking up a lot of buzz is that of Curtis Samuel on the Washington football team. I think that he is someone who could, he pulls up on sideline with trainers in practice today. been battling a groin injury for the summer. I don't know, man. Now that makes me scared of going out and targeting our guy, Curtis Samuel. But I will say, if and when he is healthy, he presents a tremendous value at the receiver position. I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to fall in love with Curtis Samuel as a receiver on this team. Nonetheless, let's take Captain Kirk. You like that, Kirk Cousins, and then let's turn around and let's take Marquez Callaway. He might have a bad matchup week 1, knowing that he's going to be facing off against one of the best corners in the league against J.R. Alexander, but nonetheless, I will take him all day as he presents wide receiver 1 value. And we look at this bench, I mean, not a lot of flashy names, right? Ronald Jones, Chenault Jr., Brandon Cooks, Kirk Cousins, and Marquez Callaway. But I'm telling you, this is a solid bench, man. This is a really, really good bench that I would be happy with. A lot of starter potential and value on that bench. We look at our starting lineup. Not the prettiest wide receiver names still, right? But Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, TJ Hawkinson, and James Robinson, as well as Antonio Brown and Jerry Jeudy. I would feel very, very good about this squad overall. And if I'm being honest, I would want to target a tight end here at the end of the draft and cross my fingers that we could get a Robert Gronkowski. Your tight end 6 on average last year. I mean, can you really get a better value from the tight end position there? I don't know. But with that being said, this might have to be my last mock draft before tonight's actual draft, as I do need to just take a mental break in between the actual draft that I'll be live streaming at 6 p.m. I'll probably get on, back into things about 10 minutes before 6 or so. Potentially might hop back on closer to 5:30 if I can find out where I'm selecting from, and then I'll run a couple mock drafts or at least one mock draft based off of that selection. But just giving you guys a heads up. Might take a brief intermission and then start another live stream, by 5:30, or at least by between 5:30 and 5:50, depending on what we want to do here. But nonetheless, man, definitely enjoy you guys joining us and getting me some really good fantasy Q&A there, man. Really, really do enjoy trying to help you guys to the best of my ability with your fantasy season. So anytime you guys have questions, concerns, just thoughts on this coming fantasy season, man, drop it in the comments down below. For live streaming, throw it in the live stream. And as always, guys, go ahead and smash that like button if you guys haven't already, so we can help other viewers get hip to the catch. And go ahead and subscribe if you are new here and become part of the Catch fam, man. We just want to spread, all that love and support throughout the fantasy community and try and help one another win a fantasy championship this year, man. As we now see Rob Gronkowski off the board, who was really who we were trying to get here in round 13. But nonetheless, man, I still think we can come out of this round with a very good overall player. We did almost forget about Terrace Marshall Jr., who apparently I'm sleeping on. So from this perspective, we would be rolling with just one tight end, and that of TJ Hawkinson. We could always forfeit a kicker or a defense and take another tight end like an Evan Ingram and a PPR value, but I will say that this 12-man league that I'm playing in and drafting in tonight is a half PPR league. So some of these guys, even like an Antonio Brown or someone like an Evan Ingram, who I've been higher on in terms of PPR value, may not present as much value in my draft tonight. But if I'm being honest, and I've talked about this a lot, right? I view half PPR and PPR value in very, very similar fashion, right? I will say Evan Ingram is someone who I'm not as high not as high on in a half PPR standpoint. But nonetheless, I mean, if he's the best value at tight end, he's the best value at tight end. So I think overall this roster is very even. I mean, these receivers maybe could be a little bit better, I guess. We just don't have a big flashy name in there. But if you're asking me, man, Jerry Jeudy's as flashy as it gets. I mean, that's a guy that I want on all of my fantasy rosters. I'm really scared that my co-host Steven is going to steal him from me tonight. So let's see, kind of just trying to get a perspective on who's going. I mean, once again, man, 2 starters on the Cleveland Browns not taken until round 13, both at the quarterback and tight end position. I mean, I don't know, man. I think a lot of people are going to regret sleeping on that Browns team. I think they're going to come out and really, I think they have finally have the pieces in place to finally get everything put together. And all that hype surrounding them over the past couple of years can finally be solidified. So, nonetheless, man, our final pick for this mock draft, well, not our final pick, but our final pick outside of a kicker or a defense is going to be that of Terrace Marshall Jr. Let's go ahead and check out what defenses are available. Excuse me. I mean, if you're asking me, man, I still don't get why everyone is sleeping on Miami's defense, man. I don't have a problem going out and drafting them whatsoever, right? But nonetheless, let's go ahead and add Terrace Marshall Jr. as well, and then we will know that we will get a kicker on this squad as well. If we're looking at these other defenses available, right? I mean, I like New England here. I mean, I don't like that they're facing off against my QB Tua next week, but I still think they're going to be very reliable throughout the whole season. I'm not too big on Buffalo overall at the moment, or New Orleans, if I'm being honest. Minnesota, pretty abysmal last season from a defensive standpoint, but they do have some favorable matchups throughout the year. The LA Chargers, another team, pretty god awful at from a defensive perspective last year, but some pretty decent matchups and definitely going to be better than they were last year. And kind of same with the Bears. I mean, I think that between Minnesota, the LA Chargers, and the Chicago Bears, I think that one of these defensive teams has a chance to break out and be one of those hot waiver wire additions throughout the season. But it's hard to say. I mean, we'll see, right? I think that Green Bay is a pretty good option defensively as well. We liked Seattle for some time as a week 1 streamer against backup quarterback on the Colts, but as we found out today, Carson Wentz is going to be out there, so I don't really like that stream anymore. I truly don't. I am not big on Tennessee's defense, man. I would not go out and make them part of your draft whatsoever. Now, if you're looking at a defense in the back half of the draft and you absolutely fumbled, while Arizona has a poor matchup against Tennessee's offense in week 1, right? We saw me drop Arizona in my 20-man league for the Carolina Panthers defense, right? I do believe that overall, from a season standpoint, that Arizona is going to have a good defensive year. I think they're very much improved in the off season. I think that their linebacking corp is going to be very good overall. So they are someone to at least consider. Carolina is another team that I think they're a little bit better than they are being projected. And I keep accidentally scrolling through all of these. Let's try and get Carolina. There we go. And yeah, they did not play well last year from a defensive position, but I think they have some under the radar guys that they've added to that defense, and I think they're going to actually come out and play pretty well. And they are facing that New York Jets offense in week 1 with rookie Zach Wilson out there. And I'm really torn because that is who I'm starting in my 20-man league, right? But with that being said, I do actually feel like Zach Wilson has the opportunity to come out and play quite well. So while I do think it's very likely he makes some mistakes, I also think that it's very likely that he could come out and have a great year. Let's talk about Tevin Coleman to end this draft. He is currently listed as the running back 1 for the New York Jets. And I get it. It's the New York Jets, right? And there are other running backs in this team that are going to be rotated in, and that being Ty Johnson and Michael Carter, right? Nonetheless, I think that Tevin Coleman is a very sneaky value. This is another player who I really wish I had targeted in my 20-man league, a perfect candidate at the position to target in leagues that are as deep as 20 men, right? I mean, Terrace Marshall Jr. and Tevin Coleman, the two players I really regret not making part of my draft board, and potentially Henry Ruggs as well. But nonetheless, man, if you're sitting here at the end of a 12-man league and all you have left is a kicker to draft, and someone like Tevin Coleman is sitting there who is potentially an RB1, I'm going to go out and draft them. Looking at some of the other people available here, other players, right? I think Sterling Shepard is a tremendous value at the receiver position here. I'm not going to take a chance on Michael Thomas, but I know that a lot of people really like the idea of having Michael Thomas on their fantasy roster. But nonetheless, some pretty good values here in late rounds, like Henry Ruggs, Telvin Coleman, and not just late rounds, at end of the draft, the final selection. So if this was my actual draft, right, I would absolutely forfeit a kicker there and go out and get a guy like Telvin Coleman. So nonetheless, man, I like this roster a lot. I think it's very even. I don't mind the receivers on this team, right, even if they're not so flashy. At the quarterback position, we've got Josh Allen and Kirk Cousins. At the running back position, I feel very confident in Nick Chubb, Najee Harris, James Robinson, and Ronald Jones. I'd feel really good about those 4 running backs. At the tight end position, all we have is TJ Hawkinson, but hey, he's a top talent, and we reached for him because he was the top talent, regardless of position. He was the best talent on the board, and we took him, so we can live with that decision. At the receiver position, like I said, it's not flashy, but I like all these guys a lot, and I have full conviction in all of them. And we didn't mention Telvin Coleman, who we just picked with the final selection instead of a kicker at the running back position as well, who I think is a great RB1 value at the end of the draft, right? But at the receiver position, Jerry Jeudy, A.B. Chenault Jr., Brandon Cooks, Marquez Callaway, and Terrace Marshall Jr., and then we ended up with Miami's defense as well. I would feel pretty freaking good about this overall core roster to start my 12-man draft tonight. So with that being said, guys, if you didn't already, go and smash that like button, and then I'm taking a brief intermission. Okay, I will be back sometime between 5:30 and 5:50, I would say. Okay, and then I will be live streaming my co-host and myself's 12-man draft tonight. I am very excited for this, guys. I really want you guys to be a part of this and be in that live chat, hitting up some fantasy Q&A, going through these selections with me tonight at 10 or 6 p.m., not 10 p.m. Geez, that would be a really late night for us. But 6 p.m. Is when the draft is kicking off. Like I said, I'm going to try and hop on here and see when I can get into the draft room and see where I'm selecting from, and then I'm going to try and do at least one more mock draft before I actually draft tonight, and then we will live stream that 12-man live draft. Man, I'm so excited. I truly am. Like I said, this is my longest term league overall. The 20-man league I play in, I've been in for years, but I've been playing off and on. Steven and I have been playing fantasy football off and on since elementary school, man, literally since the 5th grade. So it's crazy, man. I'm so ecstatic. I had so much fun. I just cannot express how much all of the love and support we have gotten on this channel over the past month or two has meant to me. I've had so much fun conducting these mock draft for you guys, producing this fantasy content. It has been an absolute blast. And what do you know? My main draft is actually here. It is coming up in an hour. I just can't believe it, man. It's absolutely crazy. So shout out to the Catch fam. You guys mean the world to not just me, but to my co-host Steven as well, man. I mean, it's just absolutely wild. It's been a wild ride to get to this point. And before you know it, we're going to have actual NFL action tomorrow. I'm so excited, man. I'm taking a brief intermission. We will be back shortly, so stay tuned. Smash the like button. Throw some comments down retrospectively. Do whatever you guys need to do. Subscribe. If you are new, we're on the road to 100 subscribers. Go ahead and become a member of the Catch fam. And nonetheless, I will see you guys shortly.